Good evening and welcome along to NUFC Matters. It's the Friday night show, which seems to be one of the most popular, which is great. So welcome to my usual guests. We've got Neil Mitchell, of course, better known as the Jordan Dentist. We've got Steve Hastie, Old Teutonian, of course, on Twitter. We've got a welcome return to someone who made a big impression last week. We've got Ian Mearns, who's the MP for Gateshead.
All right.
Come back. Good to see you, lads. As always, we haven't planned the show, and obviously we're letting everyone who comments, basically, tell us which direction they want to go in. But we always have to start off with something. Mitch, is this the weekend?
It could be, but who knows really? I think those in the corridors of power of the Premier League seem to be allowing this to drag on now, which is exceptionally frustrating for everybody. I've heard nothing on the negative side over here at all. I've had conversations with people in Qatar this week even, who on the back of the Tuesday barrage that came out, flip-flopped within about an hour of having conversation. It was off, it was back on, it was off, it was back on. It's been off and on more than a tart bloody knickers. It's so frustrating. Yet the confidence from the Saudi UAE side here seems quite, nothing's changed. It's all positive, and and I think that the most interesting thing through the week was the negative stuff that came out on Tuesday came from sources that have always been negative, always, for one reason or another. And interestingly, I was expecting a bit of pushback from Saudi on Wednesday. Didn't come. Mm-hmm. And that to me says Saudi are pretty chilled. Mm-hmm. It's not like them not to push back on something like that. Really not. And so that's what I took out of the week. And it's been tricky to keep up with it all because it's been really, really rolling. And I get why everybody's getting to a almost negative mindset again. Because it's frustrating, but it's the Premier League allowing this now, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was asked today by a journalist to do a quick Q&A about mental health. I put a tweet out yesterday, just, or the other day, essentially just saying that it is affecting people's mental health. It's not affected mine directly. What's affected mine, of course, is having a big social media following on Twitter, has meant that I've been asked a lot of the same questions over and over again. So, I suppose it has affected me slightly, and I've just took time away from social media, switched my phone off, switched the computer off, and moved away and distanced myself from the whole thing because we've just tried to be the calm and influence on things. But yeah, the Q&A that I did today was, has it affected people's mental health? And it clearly has. I've had, I counted back through the messages that I had on various forms of social media, and I would say it's probably about 100 people who said, I'm suffering, and yes, it's not just because of the takeover, but that's playing a big part, but it's also to do with the fact that people have been locked down for 4 months. It's the fact that people are losing their jobs. It's because people don't know where the next job is coming from, if there's going to be another job. And there's just so many other things which have got nothing to do with football, but football is, I think what people fail to forget in the grander scheme of thing is that, football is a big part of people's lives in the Northeast, not just Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, whatever. And, that is their one focus. It's their one enjoyment. Yeah, they might like to have a cigarette. They might like to have a pint. And they might like to watch Coronation Street on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday. But they also like to go to the match.
Well, it's like one of the first things I said when I was being asked about the takeover and the initial questions were all about human rights and stuff like that. Mm. And I said it over here on Dubai Eye, speaking to Chris McCarty, and I think I said it at a couple of other places, maybe even at the Gianura's town hall on Zoom.
That was good.
That football fans and supporters, we're not here to solve the world's problems. And in fact, that 90 minutes on a Saturday takes you away from our problems. Yeah. And that's what a lot of we use it for. It's our escape. It's the ejector seat from reality for 90 minutes.
It's right.
And it does affect you when that's not there the way that you want it and need it.
Yeah, that's the problem, Ian, isn't it? I'm sure you've had a few letters from constituents or emails or whatever, just people saying, look, is there anything you can do? And I mean, Richard Masters, who is the king of all the surveillance still at the Premier League, he had a great old time at Anfield with his mask on, handing out winners' medals to the Liverpool lot. He could have had that valuable night sitting in the house trying to get takeover deal sorted out?
Yeah, well, I can reveal the watching masses tonight, like, that I actually wrote to Richard Masters on Tuesday, and I was making to him many of the points about people's mental health. What I actually said to him is that people are anxious about the potential takeover or not, and they're just wanting a decision. And that anxiety would be bad enough in the best of times, but we're in the worst of times when people are concerned about loss of loved ones. Some of them are concerned about people who have been locked down and haven't been able to see, separation of family and friends, and the threats to jobs and to livelihoods. All of that is there, and then on top of that, as Mitch has pointed out, for an awful lot of people going to the football is a mental release, and they haven't got that mental release. They've got an additional anxiety about the ownership of their football club. Particularly now as we come, and I said this to Richard Masters in the letter, to this final weekend in the season, and the opening of a transfer window on Monday. It's not conducive to people feeling chilled out about it. I noticed you referenced the atmosphere in Saudi Arabia being pretty chilled, but Newcastle fans aren't chilled about it. And I've spoken to a lot of my mates. I've had contacts from constituents. And okay, there's a lot more important things in the scheme of things going on, but people need this additional anxiety like a hole in the head, and it is actually concerning an awful lot of people. So the issue about mental health, it's another thing that they don't need, and I really don't understand why the Premier League haven't yet made a decision. I understand that there was still some correspondence going between the Premier League and the bidding consortium a couple of weeks ago, and the Premier League, I understand, hadn't received answers to questions. I understand that now they've had that clarification. So let's hope that a decision can be made very quickly. Even if they're not going to make a decision quickly, why don't the Premier League come out and say that? I know that it's a bit like, previous governments didn't want to give a running commentary on the Brexit negotiations, but for goodness sake, the Premier League can let the paying public, the supporters of Newcastle United, know what's going on. Because now, the feedback I'm getting directly is, to an awful lot of fans, the Premier League are now becoming the enemy. They want a decision one way or another, so that the club with Ashley can move on and he can find another bidder, or we can prepare for the season with his dead hand at the tiller, or we can have the takeover go ahead and the new consortium. But at the moment, the club, the fans are in sort of a state of limbo crossed with purgatory, frankly,
Yeah, it's a good way of summing it up, limbo and purgatory. You're not wrong, Steve. I mean, a lot of excitement this week. Leaked photographs. I mean, if we're not playing spotting, where we've got someone up at the ground with a mobile phone taking photographs of fences. The place is gated off, and people arguing in the thread today on Twitter over how long these are fake photographs. Who on earth's going to fake a fence? But just before we came on air as well, they were talking about there was a big headline and then a byline about the owners, the prospective new owners, looking at transfer targets and stuff. It's no wonder people are. The heads are done in, but they're also getting excited. And then, then the next thing, you've got someone putting an article out saying that it's off, and the Premier League are going to say that it's definitely not going ahead. It's no wonder people are suffering. It's no wonder at all. And the frustration, you can feel the frustration building up on social media, and I can feel the frustration building up among the circle of friends that I have, And we're talking about lads who have been going to the match since, together since we're 14, 15-year-old. And I can feel their frustration. And what's even more concerning is that frustration is turning into, I can't be bothered with this anymore. I'm sick of this goddamn club. I'm sick of what's going on. I'm sick of the way we're being treated. I'm sick of the Premier League. I'm sick of Richard Masters. And it's just a continuation every day of people feeling worse and worse about that. And Ian's absolutely right that, the Premier League are turning into the enemy.
it's getting beyond a parody now, quite frankly.
Yeah. We've got a few questions coming in, as you would imagine. We'll try and keep our answers short on some of these as well. Some of them are just ones where you need a quick answer, just so we can try and get through as many things as possible. Michael Hurst asks, evening, guys. How are you all? Very well. What do you think about the new home kit? Me personally, first of all, it's okay. I won't buy it. I've never bought one under Ashley. Neil?
It's not the worst. It looks to me like something that was put together just in case they were going to be the supplier again for another year. It has that sort of template-y feel to it.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's not offensive. It could be a lot worse. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll have this often about strips. It's black and white stripes at the end of the day.
Yeah, Steve?
I was going to say, you know what? If the takeover had happened last week, this strip would have looked brilliant. You know, would have been absolutely chuffed to bits with it because a new strip and we're having to hand the money over to Mike Ashley. Yeah, it's black and white stripes. That's about it. There's nothing much more I could say about it. We could argue about how wide the stripes should be or how many there should be on it. But, you know, I don't know whether it's getting to the point where the bigger the shirt, the more stripes you get. Is that what's happening? I don't know.
Maybe it does stretch, I think. Ian, what about you?
Well, you know, I mean, is this an indication that the club and the current hierarchy at the club think that the takeover is not going to happen because they're designing a shirt and a shirt sponsor and a shirt manufacturer provider for another regime? I don't think so. That's my concern.
The only thing I would say on that one would be that knowing how the industry works in terms of kit, that this shirt would have been designed and would have been started to be manufactured around about January time.
Yeah, it was signed off in Jan.
October, November, and I think that within the documentation that's been flying around in the data room, the potential new owners will have known all about what this kit's going to be, and that gives them the opportunity. It's one to strike off, and they can move on to worrying about something else.
I would imagine it's the least of their concerns at the moment. They just want to get the kids for the door, get in, and then hopefully buy some players to at least keep us in the Premier League next season. Because I think it's be a struggle, and of course decide what they're going to do with the manager.
Regardless of the quality of the shirt, I'm more interested in the quality of the people that are going to be wearing them. Quite frankly,
oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, in the last analysis, Mitch is right. Steve's right. It's black and white stripes, and that's what we're playing. You know, whatever the variation is, it's black and white stripes. Sometimes we'll have thin ones on one side and broader ones on another, and some big. It's black and white stripes. I mean, the only thing is, I just think it's ironic, that we're sponsored by Fun 88 because I haven't been having much fun watching the tour recently.
Me neither.
Who are those people on Tyneside, Ian?
Oh, well, I mean, one of the things I've realised during the lockdown, because I've been working a lot of the days when the matches have been on, I'm just getting finished work or I've missed the first half or whatever. And I have to say, by the way, one of the things I've learned about the tour in this season is I've been watching them sober for the first time in about 2 decades, and it's not fun. It's you need some anaesthetic to watch the tour.
Yeah, definitely. About anaesthetic, Julie Baker says, "What is our favourite place for a tipple in the town?" When you're back home, I suppose. If you living abroad, Neil, it's a good question for you. Which pub do you love to come back
to? Well, when I lived in the town centre, it was either Strawberry or the Bodega.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I lived round the corner from the Bodega in walking distance or staggering distance back home from the Strawberry.
I love the Bodega, but I've got to be honest, the Tyneside Irish Centre is where I like to drink on a match day. It's a great place, and it's full of nice people after the game, before the game, after the game, top class. And the Dog and Parrot's good. Obviously, I've been doing the talk-ins there with Super Mac. That's a completely different atmosphere, of course, and that's my favourite. Steve?
Oh, well, I'm on the committee at the Tyneside Irish Centre, so I've got to say that one, Steve. I've got to get that one in straight away. And my daughter works behind the bar as well sometimes, so some of you might even know her. Next time, if you ever get in, say hello to Lauren. I like the Strawberry. In fact, I love the Strawberry. And I enjoy the Hotspur in the Haymarket just because it's near the bus for the way home.
Aye. Well, as far as I'm concerned, with Steve and yourself, Steve. I mean, I used to be a committee member at the Tyneside Irish Centre. And, you know, I drink there before the match and after the match as well. But my favourite bar in the town, I have to say, is the Crown Passada. And I've heard a vicious rumour that Fitzy's are thinking about not reopening it because of social distancing and how small it is. And I hope that's not the case because it's a cracking little bar, you know.
If you want to go on the other side of the water, get yourself to the Wheat Chief on Carlisle Street and Gateshead in Ian's constituency, because that's a cracking, if you like real ale, that's a cracking boozer. That and the Fox have always been pretty special down Carlisle Street. So a little bit
is the Wheat Chief still Big Lamp, is it?
Still Big Lamp, still George and Big Lamp. So definitely worth it visit. He always keeps a good pint in there. Gothbog's Pyjama says, would you want us to keep any of the loanees? Bentaleb asking for 80 grand a week is too much for me. Lazaro doesn't want to stay, and Danny needs banning from Greg's. And similar, Danny Brown says, what do we think about Steve Bruce's comments on Bentaleb and Lazaro? So, Ian, I'll give you this one because you're only with us.
Well, I think the consensus among all my pals is none of them, really. You know, none of them. You know.
Yeah. Steve, what about you? I wouldn't.
No, I'm very much the same. I mean, the amount of money that they're asking for Lazaro is ridiculous. £20 million, dear me. £80,000 a week for Bentaleb? No thanks. That's not going to happen. And Danny Rose, well, they're talking about £5 million. He's been average at best, and I always look at it and go, you know what? Are there better out there? And there certainly are. So for me, you know, you don't own them. Why would you want them? Let them go. Let's send them back. Put it back to the problem of their current owners.
What about you, Neil? Anybody there?
Only one I could make an argument for is Rose. I think he's the only one I could make an argument for, and it wouldn't be a very strong argument. Yeah. I think there's got to be better ways to invest hard-earned than Danny Rose. Yeah. So and I think if we could get Lazaro for another season on loan, I'd take that. But we've got to decide what he is, because I don't think anybody knows what he is, and I think we've got to find a use for him.
Not getting enough game time, is he really, to be fair? Doesn't look like a Bruce kind of player, if I'm perfectly honest.
No.
If Bruce is going to be in that dugout at the start of the season, and don't expect Lazaro to be there. Local heroes, as is St James's Park, really fenced up. It has been Lee Marshall, of course, who does everything from make cups of tea to do the press conferences to answer questions on behalf of the owner. He confirmed it by tweet today that that happens for these games, and that there wasn't anything to be excited about. Although I had a phone call from somebody today to say a stage has been delivered to St James's Park, so maybe Mike Ashley's going to put on Newcastle United the musical during the pre-season. Liv Foster says, "Class shirt, Mitch." I was going to ask you about the shirt. Actually, you've been doing your bit for Newcastle Blue Star.
Blue Star. Yeah,
I've got the Newcastle one on, which isn't very similar, but that's Newcastle Blue Star, who, of course, Lee Clark, who's a regular on the show, is now involved with Newcastle Blue Star as well as. Where can you get the shirt, Mitch? How can you get that shirt?
Well, my dad got it for us and DHL'd it across with a load of stuff for the Ben. So he got it from direct from the club shop online.
Right.
Yep. There's an online store, Steve. You can pick it up on the online store. And I've seen it advertised, and there's been some links on Twitter recently. So if people search for Blue Star, Newcastle Blue Star, they'll certainly be able to find some links from the last few weeks that have been pushing out. It looks great, mine, by the way, Mitch. Looks really good.
Yeah,
it's bloody good quality as well, to be fair.
That's good. Well, that's one thing that Newcastle shirts over the last few years certainly haven't been there. Mag says, think we should buy the Blue Star shirt instead of Ashley's shirt. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people will. I mean, that's been one of the things. People of a certain vintage, i.e. us and our...
Us.
Nobody's never bought a shirt under this regime because they just dropped the bits. I mean, I'm staggered. The last shirt I bought, I can't actually remember what it was, but it's not the kind of thing you do. Plus, you get to a certain age, you don't bother wearing them anymore. Like, I've got to be honest. But
you know what? There's been some fantastic designs put up, hasn't there, on Twitter? Some lads putting up over the last sort of 6 months ideas on shirts. And quite frankly, if I was the new owners, I would spend the next year working with supporters like that and coming up with some sort of competition or working with them to to create a shirt that, you know, the vast majority of supporters would like to see, because there's some really, really creative people in among the fan base, and I've seen some fantastic designs over the last couple of months, really.
Steve, I would suggest to do that for the strip and for perhaps even a new club crest. We've got so many creative young minds in our fan base that produce some bloody quality things that could quite easily deceive you that they were actually official when they stick them up. You know, they're that good quality, and there's some really good lads out there who do this for a living. Yeah. And you sit down with a group of them and say, right, let's pick your brains. Where do you want to go with this? Yeah. You know, again, you know, we talk about new owners getting easy wins. That's one of the easiest wins of the lot.
Absolutely. A creative team of supporters working together to produce kit, to produce badges, to produce souvenir stuff, you know, right across the range, stuff that's going way, way back to the modern day. You know, the creative people that we've got out there, I think that would be a fantastic idea, quite frankly.
Yeah, a lot of people asking me what you're drinking. It looks like Amstel, is it, Mitch? As always.
Well, there was nearly a can-related disaster because I'm in Dubai and I wasn't expecting to be. I was expecting to be in Ras Al Khaimah. Right. So I actually only have a couple of cans of Amstel, but I've got a couple of bottles of Peroni on standby. Well, I didn't want to come on with a bottle because I thought it would cause a meltdown that I didn't have a can.
Right. But I mean, the thing is, I got some cans in to celebrate the takeover, and of course, I've had to drink them because they were gone past their sell-by date.
A lot of people asking, too many to mention. Have you had an answer from Richard Masters yet?
No. I'm going to email the letter to him on Tuesday. Haven't even had an acknowledgement yet, Steve.
Yeah, he's too busy sorting the takeover out. That's what it is. David Elliott says, brilliant show, lads. With Leeds United getting promoted, this is now as close to a derby we will have. If Qatar bought Leeds as rumoured, how big a game would Newcastle Leeds be in the Middle East, Mitch?
Well, shall we talk about something interesting here? Right. Yes, we shall. Yes, we shall. Now, you've heard me talking about a club that was undergoing discussions for sale pre-COVID. And the owner was dropped the price 20 million within 5 days because he just wanted it off his hands. Mm-hmm. I believe that was Leeds.
Yeah.
I've been led to believe it was Leeds by the person that was doing the deal.
Yeah. Okay.
And now you've got an owner saying, it's great, we're back where we belong, and this, that, and the other. Mate, a few months ago, you were wanting to sell the thing. Now, I believe it was Qatari money that was behind the bid. Because outside of the Premier League, they were probably, after us, the next best value proposition going. Mm-hmm. And as has been demonstrated repeatedly, the EFL ownership and directors test, they'll just let any old monkey buy a club. So, you know, that's another reason to target them. That they're in a position to get promoted with minimal investment, and you'll get them quite cheap, and you should pass the O&D test quite easily. Now, what happens with that promoted? I think that owner's going to want either to keep the club for his own bit of ego, or he's going to want a hell of a lot more money for it. And suddenly there's that a club that's a value proposition. Now, discussions this week, there's rumours in Qatar that the Qataris may be lining up a bid for Newcastle United if the Saudi deal falls through. And I've not said anything about that yet. No. I was keeping it for tonight. So the guy that told us it said that he thinks it's pie in the sky, but he's digging, and he's still digging. Yeah. So let's see what happens. But there's certainly murky things afoot, shall we say, again, with it all. But I'm pretty convinced it was Leeds that they were bidding for, and it got scuppered by COVID.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing Leeds have done is they had a 20 million buy-in clause for a striker they've had on loan from one of the Red Bull clubs, and they're trying to get that cancelled. They don't want to pay that money for him. They don't want him. And so they're trying to backtrack. And again, why would you do that if you just got promoted to the Premiership? Because I believe that financials actually aren't as terribly good.
Quick one for you there, Mitch, from Christopher. Have you had any assurance that they tried to address the piracy before the bid was submitted? It seemed to catch them out.
My understanding was they went into the bid with their eyes wide open, and they felt that they could tackle any issue on piracy that came their way. Whether they expected it to become then a leverage within the deal as the deal went beyond ownership and directors test, that's a different matter.
Okay. Steve, one for you here. Do you think the Premier League and Masters in particular are enjoying keeping Newcastle and the fans hanging by a thread? Is it a control thing, he asks?
No, I don't. No, I don't think it's a control thing. It's probably just incompetence, perfectly honest. What we did here during the week was that things were getting so complex and so complicated because of the way Premier League have done this, that they've had to go out and find another team of lawyers to join their weak-willed bunch that they've got currently work for them to boost them up. Because there's so much information that they've now had landed in their lap, and there's so much for them to go through that they've had to extend. They've had to bring another team of lawyers, another group of lawyers in to try and get through this murky mess that they've created themselves, because they've just got a morass of information. They've gathered so much information and so much data, and so much of it contradicts each other, that they're now in a situation that they've landed themselves in, which has cost them an absolute fortune by bringing in, and the only people who are winning are the teams and teams of solicitors who are now sitting down in London thinking, happy days, we had nothing to do during COVID. It's the Premier League keeping us going.
And one of the things I've heard about the lawyer situation is that there are so many lawyers in the London circuit who would have a problem representing the Premier League because they've got conflicts of interest with Saudi-based clients of their own in and around London, and that's been one of the problems that they might have. But you know what the veracity of that is, I'm not sure. Yeah, and Qatari, you know, on both sides, because they've got the TV situation to cope with. They've got the added problem that's just been thrown into their plate with China. The whole thing is turning into an absolute dog's dinner for them, quite frankly. And you know, the easy way out of it, you know, is to have the guts to make a decision and stand by the decision. But they're scared stiff of. I mean, who do they think's going to sue them? Are they worried that BN Sports are going to sue them? Well, you know, BN Sports sue them. They just pull the contract from BN Sports and go, well, fair enough. If you don't want to know, then the contract goes, and they'll get a far, far better contract if they rejig the whole situation. So the Premier League was in an absolutely win-win position until they created this problem for themselves, which they're now trying to dig themselves out of, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, there was a suggestion that one of the teams of lawyers that they'd brought in wanted to start the UND tests from scratch.
Yeah, which is crazy if we do. Yeah, God.
Which at the timeline we're now looking at, that might actually be what's happened.
Yeah. Eric Sharp says, what does the panel think of China's decision to ban Premier League football, and how would it affect the Premier League? Ian, I mean, again, you know, as if we haven't got enough to be getting on with Saudi and Qatari issues, we've now got China in the mix, and you know whether that affects it as well. It's a mad time to be, you know, involved in all of this, isn't it, for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is obviously international politics getting involved in, you know, in trade deals of this nature. And you know, the one thing you've got to say about the Chinese is they have very, very long memories. You know, they'll definitely play a long game, and that might affect things. But you know, in terms of the international market, I'm not really sure what the financial impact on the Premier League will be of that. But I mean, it's not a great thing because of the size of the Chinese population and their access to TV and advertising. And I would have thought that you know, anybody who's got Chinese connections in terms of shirt sponsorship and all the rest of it, that's not good from their perspective, because they're obviously aiming at those markets. That
market, even our sponsors, Ian, even at the Chinese betting market.
Yeah. Olivier Bernard has gone into one again tonight on his Twitter about 22 minutes ago. He has tweeted, "It's happening. Thank God for that. In future, I hope we will have the ambition of a great footballer club again." And he's posted a meme underneath that of a fan holding a Newcastle flag. So he's going to get a bit of abuse, I can imagine, Olivier Bernard, if nothing happens in the next 24 hours.
You'll be in B&Q with Steve Howie.
It's yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, we're getting a lot of this. It's saying, would Olivier Bernard have inside info? I mean, look, he's been down this route before. He's put an actual date on it in the past, and he suffered for that. He went into a little bit of hiding, so it's a little bit of a weird one. That let's watch this space. Twister Man says it seems that every media source thinks they have inside knowledge, but everything they write is nothing more than clickbait. Why do we keep reading it? They're losing all credibility. We've just said that, really, Steve, haven't we? We're watching the Chronicle tonight, you know, with the headline and the byline, and then you said to me, I hadn't had time to read this story about incoming owners potentially looking at new transfer targets, and it almost says that they've had a meeting, but you say that that's not the case. I haven't had time to read the article, unfortunately.
No, exactly. I mean, the headline and then the byline had nothing to do with the little snippet in there, which was basically the almost a ticker feed, and it wasn't the new owners at all. It was saying that Ash, Charnley and Bruce were looking at transfer targets, you know, and that was it. And it was basically no longer than that. You know, I think there was more written about the fact that Bentaleb wanted £80,000 a week. You know, yeah. So the headline was part of that timeline Twitter feed that they do. You know, welcome to the Chronicle. The Chronicle Live, and it's now 2:20 in the first story, and this came out at 2:21. This at 2:25, and it works its way back. And that was it. I honestly was expecting, you know, as you would when you see a headline, that's something far major than what came out.
I think it frustrates the lads at the Chronicle sometimes, because I think the way it's run now, particularly online, I spoke to Andrew Musgrove a couple of weeks ago about something he'd written, and they'd put a totally different spin with a headline and byline, and I think he was a bit peed off about it. And I think it frustrates them. I mean, you look at all the media people this week. You know, you've had negativity from the usual sources. You've had people hanging on the every word of somebody who actually was sacked by the BBC for certain swear words in a report, left a little trail of devastation here in the UAE. He ended up working with beIN for a couple of years, and he hasn't worked for beIN for 2 years. It's still in his bio on Twitter, and people hang on his every word. He writes eloquently, and he sounds informed, and all of that, yet... you know, somebody's. I think the agenda is to just try and stay relevant, and I think this is a challenge for all of us, and that's why the tweet I hired out when I was dealing with a load of shit at work. Actually, I was dealing with a hell of a lot of shit at work through the week about, you know, a little thing to take away. But whenever you read something that's anti or pro, look at who's writing it and try and look at what the agenda and the angle that they're coming at, and don't let it wind you up too much and don't let it bring you down too much. Because the amount of time somebody's written something extremely negative and then it's been walked back within 6 hours, sometimes by the same newspaper, it's crackers. And so it's clickbait heaven.
Yeah, it has. And that's how they make their money, unfortunately, because, you know, the written press now, it's, you know, going out and buying a newspaper. You haven't been able to go out and buy one unless you get it delivered for 4 months. Now you're in a situation where you've got out of the habit. You don't want to buy a newspaper, but it's been on its backside for years. I mean, I think the Chronicle sells like 10,000 hard copies now, and back in the heyday, it was in 100,000 copies, you know, back in the day.
Well, the Journal used to do 60,000. I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and now the Chronicle comes out before the Journal most days. You know, and of course we've just seen the parent company Reach announcing 500 redundancies, and most of them is going to be in regional newspapers around the country, and that's undoubtedly affecting here as well. You know,
crying shame. Ian, before you go, I want to try and get a couple of questions. I know you've got about 5 minutes left. Sean says. Do any of us collect match day programs? Well, I'll start. I know I used to, you know, as a kid. Obviously, I've got about 800. I've tried to pass them on to Mick at the back page, but he's inundated with he's under a pile of programs, Mickey says. So yeah, I've got a load dating back to my first seasons back in the 80s, and then I inherited my dad's old collection. So I've got some dating back to the 1950s. Dad, and then granddad was a referee, so I've got some going back to 1943, I think it is my earliest program. So I've got about 800. Ian, are you a program collector? Or?
Well, I used to be, but I stopped basically about 5 or 6 years ago because I didn't want to. I don't buy anything at the ground. Shirts, scarves, anything like that anymore. Because of Ashley. So I stopped collecting programs as well, and I've got lots and lots of them. I've got boxes full of them. That I need to have them catalogued, to be honest, Steve, because I've got some going back quite a long way.
Neil, I can't imagine your lass would have allowed you to take boxes of programs across there, mate.
I actually, little story. Most of the stuff I used to collect got sold before we came to Dubai. It all got eBayed. We lived in it. We lived in the last home we had before we came out here was in a little village called Iveston, just outside a concert, up in the Durham Dales, and we had a wonderful house there with a triple garage that had 2 parts of it. It was full of my crap.
You have dodgy neighbours, though, Neil. You have dodgy neighbours, though.
Well, Collie's a nice lad, though. He's macking, but he's a nice lad. So a lot of it, I had programs, I had shirts, I had a load of Subutio stuff going back to the 60s. And not that I'm a collector or a hoarder or anything like that. I also had a load of trainers that got stuck on eBay, and I can't even begin to tell you how much money we made on eBay when it all got eBayed. I was sick of trips to concert to the post office. I really was. My last month before I moved to Dubai, I think I lived in concert post office. But it got me here. It paid for my flights and it paid for a load of stuff out of here, so it was worth it in the end.
Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I've got a couple of sports bags and haversacks and old school haversacks, that is. I've got a few carrier bags with programs and magazines and the black and white and fanzines and also I try if I see something like that, I've always just picked it up, and then I've never been a one for chucking things away. I've got a big plastic bag full of old shirts that I've collected over the years. I've got the ones behind us that I've had signed, and I've tried to pick up programs that have been relevant to, say, the game that I went to that I've enjoyed, or a game that was like the first game after my daughter's birth and stuff like that I put in a little frame. Little mementos like that. More things now that sort of mean something. I've been to the back page and picked up 1 or 2 of those. I did have a load that I got signed by Supermax, some really good programs and pictures and stuff. And I left them in the Irish Centre, and I left them behind the bar, and somebody snaffled them. So I've been on the hunt for that for about the last 3 seasons, I tell you. I remember one of the last.
They're lovely, Steve. Honestly, they're lovely. One of the last people I was drinking with was Michael Oliver, the referee. I'm wondering whether he snaffled them.
Classic, absolute classic. Keep your questions coming in, guys, and follow us on Facebook. We are on there, NUFC Matters, and tomorrow we will be live with Lee Clark at 1 o'clock. So we'll be live. If you've got questions for Lee, get in touch. I'm not going to read Warwick's full name out. I'm not that daft, but he says, have the Premier League ever knocked anybody back from a takeover? Have they? I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. Jinx.
Yeah, that's a positive, I suppose. Team again says, I wonder if the Premier League have given PIF an answer in the last hour or so. Would make sense, end of week, etc. Maybe Bernard's got whiff of this, potentially. If Mike Ashley continues as owner, I've been told the transfer budget is only 30 million.
No, that was in the Chronicle. I think that was Wednesday, wasn't it? It said that the budget of 30 million in an interview, in a little snippet with Bruce, either before or after one of the games this week. I think it was after Monday's game, so I think it's been Tuesday. We saw that snippet. And then it also said that if that was the case, that Ashley had said that any more money that he wanted over and above that, because apparently they're struggling financially because we're not paying our season ticket money anymore. I thought we were, but that's another story. But it said that he was going to have to generate his own funds from the squad. And I looked at that squad and I thought, well, who's he going to sell? Yeah. Who's he going to sell to make an awful lot of money? He's going
to be down the back of the sofa, isn't he? Jesus.
Yeah,
the thing is, sorry, Stevie, just quickly, my season ticket money's still coming up my bank account every month. That's just nonsense, Yeah. It is. It's just nonsense.
Yeah. Last question for you, Ian, because I know you've got to go, and we'll be bringing Paulie Belter on. Great show as always. Do you not think Ashley wants his money off the Premier League, i.e. league position money before he sells? I mean, there's a train of thought, Ian, in the sense that the end of the season draws a line under everything. If where Newcastle finish in the Premier League, if they finish a position higher, there's an extra $1 million there. Maybe it's a clean break at the end of it, and the Premier League give an answer, and everyone's happy, and we'll move on.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think I mentioned on the cast last week, about where we could have finished, and I just kind of look at, if that was a factor, right? If that was a factor, I mean, if you look at the games we've played against the bottom four, the current bottom four, three of them going to be relegated, one of them will survive. We've actually won 2 games against the bottom 4. Yeah. I mean, and that's both against Bournemouth and the rest of the Boxing Day. Right, and the rest of them, we've drawn 3 and lost 3 against the bottom 4. I mean, honestly, I actually think, if we're worried about place money, why not try to do something about winning games like those? I mean, because that's a lot of points going to beg. I think we've got 9 out of 24 against the bottom 4. Just that's poor,
Oh, of course.
You know what, Ian? After every game, I'll look at that. I'll look at what points total, and after every match that we've played during this lockdown period, and I've thought, where did we get those points from? I can't even remember, because the performances do not show me that we've actually managed to get those 40-odd points. I just cannot. I'm puzzled by it. I know that it's a year's a long time. And I mean, Donald Trump's told us that what cognitive's all about. But I'm beginning to question my cognitive splitting, psychosis that I've got developing over where we've managed to pick up these points from. Because as you say, what we've managed against the bottom 4 has been an absolute shambles.
Aye. Yeah. Definitely. So that's I don't think that's honestly a factor, and it's if he's going to get 300 million quid and walk away, brilliant, well done to him, but the thing is, I think like all Newcastle fans, we've got significant reservations about the potential new owners, but everybody just wants the back of Ashley, that's end of story.
Yeah. Ian, as always, great to have you on. I know you're going to dash off, mate. It'd be great to get you back on next week. We'll be doing a season review next Friday. So if you're around next Friday, stick it in the diary. It'd be good to get you back on.
I'm afraid I'm on my way to Scotland for my holidays next Friday, Steve. But I tell you what, if as soon as if I do hear anything back from the Premier League, I'll let you know. Okay.
That's great. Ian Mearns.
Nice one. Cheers, Ian.
It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Bye, mate.
Bye.
Great to have Ian on, and big thanks to Ian for writing to Richard Masters. Nice of him to do that. Absolutely superb. And hopefully we'll get some kind of reply. Now, as always, we offer an opportunity for people to come on. So this week, we've managed to get a couple of guests. So first up, we've got local singer-songwriter Paulie Belter, who's going to join us for the same kind of crack. I'm not sure whether you're there, Paulie. Are you? Are you there? I feel like Alan Robson. Get to those.
First time caller, and I'm a bit nervous.
He's frozen a bit. I think he's come back. There he is. Hold on. There he is. Paulie, how are you? Can you hear us? He's frozen in time. He's having a few. I think he's having a few internet issues. He's moved. Yeah. Can you hear?
I'm having audio problems here.
Oh, you having audio problems? We can hear you, mate. We can hear you.
Can you hear a thing? Sorry.
No problem, mate. Do you want to dip out and come back?
I'll try and get out of it and then come back in and see if that works.
No problem, mate. We'll keep an eye out for you. Getting back to the comments. We've already had that one. Dan Milne says, evening, lads. Look forward to this every Friday. Funny how one day the deal stalls and the next day meeting for transfer targets. Do you think they'll announce it after Liverpool? It's obviously going to cause a bit of an issue with people, isn't it? With all of these mixed messages, etc.
Yeah. All along, Steve, and this is what we're saying. It's really difficult to keep a handle on it, because genuinely the only people who know where this is really at is the Premier League. And even the buyer and the seller are now starting to ask questions and say, right, where is it? Where we're going here? And so as long as that remains, you're going to get rumour, counter rumour, People who, I mean, like I said, I had conversations this week with people who genuinely are in positions to and have given amazing info throughout this whole thing. And one of them, it flip-flopped within 30 minutes. You know, it was ridiculous. And it's really very difficult to keep a hand on it. So if it's difficult for them, then it's difficult for us. For the fan base, I'm not surprised that, you know, that we're in the fan base is in the position it's in. It's so frustrating.
It is, yeah, 100%. A lot of people asking about face mask. I followed Mitch's lead. Mitch had one I saw for definite. I've got mine now, which most people have seen on social media. Steve, have you followed in the same vein and managed to get any Newcastle United face mask yet?
No. I'll be picking up an NUFC fans food bank face mask when they come out. They're due out in the next 10 days or so. You'll be able to pick them up online. And somebody's put this together for us. And there's well, basically the profit that's coming out of it after they've been imported, after being manufactured and brought over to here, and all the VAT and etc. has been paid, and we've paid the guy who's made them. There's going to be a little bit of money that's going to go to the food bank. So we just thought it was an opportunity. We will. It's run by NUFC Fans Food Bank, but you know, myself, Colin, and Bill, and the rest of the team. You know, Stuart, who does the social media, Monge, who helps out from TuneAid. And we've made the decision to you know, basically acknowledge that effort that somebody wants to put in and wants to donate the money. And we will then donate that money as part of the fans collective, if you like, towards the West End Food Bank, because they are struggling at the moment. There's no question about it. And things are going to get worse over the summer holidays. And then obviously when we get into the winter, and you know, lots of people are being, you know, have the idea of redundancy hanging over them and job losses. So that's just something that we're going to put in. I probably will go to the bank page and pick one up at some point in time when I'm next in town. I haven't been into town for a while, but yeah, that's the face mask I'll be wearing. I might, if I get a chance, when mine arrives, I'll certainly wear it on the show for the first couple of minutes so people can see them.
Fantastic. No, well, I'll definitely get one of them as well. Always good to help the food bank, as we have done in the past. So yeah, keep us in mind. Local Hero says, what do you think about the bid for Sunderland? Mitch was going to wind me up about this, I think, tonight, weren't you?
I was going to pull your chain because you had dealings with Rich Energy in the past.
Yeah, Will Story. I've been on the drink with Will Story a couple of years ago. He had a
interesting character, mate.
Well, he's an eccentric guy. I mean, you think might be wait till you see Will's, but yeah, Will got invited by Rob Lee to be the sponsor of the Newcastle Legends team when we did the game at Kingston Park. And to be honest, he was a great guy. Loved him. Really, really charismatic, great lad. You know, the money was there for the sponsorship, so it was great. Just great to have him involved. So has he got enough money to buy Sunderland? I think we could have a way around to buy Sunderland, couldn't we?
Just dig into the issues with the sponsorship of the Haas F1 team.
Yeah,
I think there's enough controversy there to suggest is this a publicity?
Yeah.
Perhaps
North India, a lot of goings on. I know he's done very, very well in terms of sponsorship in the motorcycling game as well. You know, and he's I think he sponsors. It's interesting. I think he sponsored West Ham United women's team as well. I think they were, you know, he was doing a lot of work. He is a character, isn't he, Steve? We know that for a fact. We know that he's had an opinion on Newcastle United takeover and PCP in the past. That's right. I think he's the sort of guy who has an opinion on lots of things, you know. It'll be interesting to see how that one pans out, to be perfectly honest.
I think we've got our sound issues resolved. It's a big welcome to Paulie Belter, local songsmith. How are you, mate?
Reed, can you go to yourself?
Very good. What are you drinking? Because we will get asked, what are you drinking?
I'm on the Bruin.
He's on the Bruin.
I look like a bottle of Bruin.
Now, just a little bit about what you're up to at the minute, Paulie. I presume you're writing songs. We can't play the songs on here, sadly, because it'll just get the show knocked off YouTube. But I mean, if you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing, I presume that you're writing some kind of songs at the minute and trying to put in a second album together. Are you ready for the takeover?
The second album is going to be coming not for a little while. I've sort of had a few songs in the pipeline, and I've put off finishing them because I want to see what plays out with like the takeover and that sort of thing, rather than doing them and then they're just being upset immediately. You know, hopefully they'll be a lot more positive going forward.
You're following the footsteps of some pretty big names. Buska, you know, is one that you think about. Ronnie Lambert, of course, he's no longer with us. Of course, Steve Hastie has connections with a few well-known songsmiths who wrote some fantastic songs. Could have been worse. Could have been Born a Mackham. Actually, comes from a relative of Steve's. And of course, we also
could have been Born a Mackham, Street of Sunderland. I think they were the three that he had on the EP, if I remember rightly.
Fantastic songs. He also did a DeCanio song as well, which it lasted about as long as DeCanio's career at Sunderland. And then, of course, Harry Palmer, who probably you know, younger fans probably won't know the likes of Buska, but Harry Palmer, he did some great songs. And I mean, your album, I've listened to it. I've done a talking with you and Malcolm MacDonald up next to Newcastle Blue Star up that neck of the woods, and you've got some good stuff. So I mean, how your album done all right, Paulie?
Oh, gone all frozen again.
I think he's frozen again. Yeah, he looks. Yeah,
you need to put 50p in the meter or something.
50 pence in the meter, sadly. Well, Paulie has got an album out. If you want to follow him on Twitter, I think he's going to have to give it a go next week. If you follow him at Paulie Belter, he's got some great songs out there. I wouldn't care. The poor lad's made a great effort. He's dressed up and everything, and he's ready to go. But we're just having some severe sound issues.
There's no truth in the rumour, Steve, that his next single's Shake, Rattle and Roll.
I love it. Just all over the NUFC. Bruce's quote on Bentaleb coming back very well. Discuss. Again, I haven't been looking at the media today. The kids are on holiday, so I've been walking them backwards and forwards to try and tire them out so they go to bed earlier tonight. Where you know, what's been said about Bentaleb? Anybody know?
Well, if he's come back very well, what does that mean? I mean, he's hardly played, the kid. You know, he did. You know, it's like he's been on the bench. He's been part. The only good thing, as far as Steve Bruce is concerned, seems to be that he's had somebody that could play instead of Matty Longstaff, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, Steve Bruce obviously had a press conference today to talk about all things Newcastle United, and as I say, I didn't see it and I haven't had time to catch up with it, so I'm a little bit unprepared for all of this. But a lot of it's about the takeover again. As I'm just scrolling through the Chronicles website, which is the best place to find the information. Apparently said that he's sure he will speak to Newcastle United, Mike Ashley, about the takeover at some point, which is great. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's no real reason for him to do that, but he's seeking clarity again, and he's planning for pre-season. And of course, the start of next season has been announced and confirmed today as September the 12th.
Can you remember? Can you remember when we used to hear from Alan Pardew was, I'm hoping to be able to speak to Mike Ashley. Then we heard from Steve McLaren. I'm hoping we can speak to Mike Ashley. Then we heard from Rafa. I've never spoken to Mike Ashley, or I cannot get in touch with Mike Ashley. And now we've got exactly the same with Steve Bruce. It's the same pattern. It's the same script, because the guys are in exactly the same situation, all four of them, with as far as Mike Ashley's concerned. You know, there's more communication. I'm going for a pizza with Mike Ashley than there is talking about transfer targets, to be perfectly honest.
I found the Bentaleb quote, and it is simple as that. It is just simply. Bruce has had a conversation. We've had conversations after the season finishes about the loan players. The three of them have certainly helped us. We haven't had a left back, so we brought Danny in. Bentaleb has come back very well. Lazaro hasn't had the game time, but I've been quietly pleased with him. And that's it, essentially. So that's all we know. They're going to have conversations at the end of the season.
Very well.
I know. We're going to give Paulie one last chance to see whether he can connect. Paulie, how are you? Can you hear us?
I'm all right. I've moved down next to the router, so hopefully that's going to sort the problems out. If not, then
that's good, mate. Well, listen, we've got you for at least another 15 minutes, mate. So just what do you make about the takeover and everything that's ongoing? How have you seen this play out over the summer? We've obviously had plenty to say over the last 4 months, but what's your views on the whole situation?
I think it's bound to happen. I don't think there's any way in the current climate that they can possibly let it not go through. There's too much money involved. The country and the Premier League aren't going to be in the best of positions financially, and it just makes sense for them to not get involved in a huge, great big court battle later on with some very rich people. Diplomatic relations between the UK and Saudi Arabia are very important. You know, if it comes to it, the government will probably end up having a word, or maybe even Lizzie herself or Prince Charles or someone behind the scenes having a word.
As long as it's not Prince Andrew.
Through.
Yeah, I mean,
they've dragged. I think they've been dragging their heels just to sort of.
Yeah, lost you again, Paulie. Sadly, the internet's not great in you know, in your area. Sadly, unfortunately, lost Paulie again. Then frozen.
And in the router there, I think, Steve.
I think so, mate. Yeah, he's gone down the wrong router. It's not working out great. Tom's just shared a post out. We're a little bit behind. Apologies, guys. It says the Bodega is great. The Adelphi's gone, so it's the Monkey Bar for Spacoid. We've also got Peter Robertson. It doesn't get announced within 48 hours of getting hammered by Liverpool. I don't think it'll ever happen. Gary says I'm going for an announcement early next week. Jay says 48 sponsors on social media are brill. And Henry Stewart says, can anyone believe that what the media say? They are constantly contradicting themselves. I used to like the George and the Dragon. We've started something here. There's always one question that ends up
isn't that?
Jay says Rosie's Bar. Yeah, great place. Does the Premier League realise how much of a laughingstock they are turning us into? The Macklams are having a field day. Can we not call for a vote of no confidence in the Premier League? I wish we could, but we can't, can we, lads?
I would flip that and say the laughingstock's the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's not us.
Yeah.
What can we do? We're fans.
Yeah.
What can the club do? It's being sold. The man who we've been told for years doesn't want to sell is selling. And he's still not bad-mouthing the sellers.
Yeah, he's found a buyer that we wanted.
And so there's no laughingstock here.
Yeah.
The laughingstock is the Premier League and the process that they're allowing to drag on. That's the laughingstock. Macklams can have a field day as much as they like. They're in League One and they're doomed to stay there at the minute. So they can laugh as much as they like. Who's going to have the last laugh? Even if we're in the bloody Championship, we're still a league above them. It's going to be, I'm telling you now, if things stay the same with them, how's Stuart Donald going to find a buyer for £40 million for that club at the minute? He's not going to find a buyer for that at all, and not at that price. Not one that'll do anything other than asset strip and sell stuff that they've got, ruin their academy, sell the land the academy's on, and run it like a ghost ship. And that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So they can laugh as much as they like, and you can feel like we're being laughed at as much as like. I get it, but glass houses and stones, man. Oh, really?
What do you make of Donald deciding that he doesn't want to be the chairman anymore? So basically, washing his hands of the club and walking, you know, and leaving the club at this stage and everything that's going on when they need, you know, they've turned them into a rudderless ship, quite frankly. Mate, and I mean, Southern fans should be more worried about that than worried about
absolutely. That's what they've got to worry about.
More worried about me being the next centre half, I think. With
well, mate, I think they're down to 13 contracted players now. Where are they going to get the players from?
I only scored 2 own goals in Sunday League football in 20 years. Like, I'll be scoring a hell of a lot more if I end up pulling the red and white shirt on at the stadium. One says, seeing that we've been linked to Callum Wilson from Bournemouth for 20 million, do you think this is a great deal? And if not, who would you like to see? I think Callum Wilson would be a great signing. I do like him.
Very good.
You can't read a great deal into the transfer stories at the minute, though, because we don't know whether we've got a paupers budget or a PIF budget, do we? That's the problem.
That's right. I mean, we talked last week with Super Macklin when we asked if there was the one player that we'd like to bring in, right, you know, in fantasy football terms. And I think, you know, I mean, my first choice obviously was De Bruyne because that's what we were playing, fantasy football. And I think Malcolm chose, if I remember rightly, Aubameyang from Arsenal, who Pierre was my second choice. and obviously has linked to Tyneside having played against Eton Stand back in 2012. But you know what? We're talking about a player who, you know, that is fantasy football. 20 million and a Callum Wilson would be a very, very good deal for Newcastle, providing we've got a fit Callum Wilson. I'm always worried that players like Callum Wilson and Josh King seem to miss, you know, long periods of seasons with injury. But having said that, that happens with lots of players. You know, you look back and you look at the career of players in the Premier League at the moment. You even look at Harry Kane and the number of games that he's missed this season. You know, so injuries are part and parcel of the modern day game, unfortunately. And I think he would be a great signing for us. It really would.
No, I think so, 100%. James Curry says, what was everyone's first match they went to? Mine was Carlisle in 1984, which was a 5-1 win. Yeah, I remember that. Kevin Carr saved the penalty and from Alan Shoulder, and we went up the other end and scored. Mine was, if we're talking Newcastle games, mine was Keegan's last game that season, 84, the 2-2 after the same Kev game. That was my very first Newcastle game. I was taken by my granddad in the director's box, and he was a referee assessor, and I was lucky enough to go behind the scenes. So I was sitting next to Peter Taylor, the commentator, on the day. I was sitting next to him, and it was a fantastic occasion. So that was my very first Newcastle game. Mitch, what was yours?
1977 FA Cup tie against Chester. The young Ian Rush knocked out the cup. We lost 2-0 at home at Chester. And were taken by me granddad and my dad into the East Stand, the new stand as it was then.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was my first game. I should have learned the lesson then.
Steve Hastie, before we bring my next guest on, Steve.
We had this a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? I was Blackpool 1967, and as I did disclose later on, after that, it was going with a garden swing and hanging it over the back fence, wasn't it, in the corner where the flag was? So
yeah,
1967 Blackpool.
Fantastic. Right, Paulie Belter unfortunately can't make it on. We wanted a female perspective on this week, so we've gone for Sab Mondo. So those of you who are on Twitter, good evening. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for joining us. Nice to have you on. And you've seen the show. You know what we do. We don't know where we're going. We'll leave it to everybody else to give us the questions, and they take us on the journey each week. So the question we've got at the minute was, what was your first match? So what was the first match that you actually went to?
You know, I know the well. It was May the 3rd, 1997. Went to Highbury to see Newcastle Arsenal, and I had to sit in with the Arsenal fans, which was quite painful, but it was brilliant.
And you were hooked from there. I mean, what was it? What was the score in that game?
We won 1-0.
Oh, was that Andy? Was that Andy Carroll? No,
Robbie Elliott header.
Robbie Elliott.
Yeah. That was the game I nearly killed old Stevie Charlton because there was a big crowd rush and I fell on top of him.
Brilliant. Obviously, good to have you on. This is the beauty of Twitter and the beauty of the show. We'll get the opportunity just to have different guests on each week. And I see you've been very proactive on Twitter. You've got an opinion. So just let us know. We tried to get Paulie on earlier on. And Sam,
I saw that. I liked his outfit as well. I think that was a shame.
He did have
put a lot of effort.
He put a lot of effort in. He got his flag up and everything. But what's your take been on the whole NUFC takeover thing?
Do you know what? I think there's so many mixed reviews on it. 1 minute you hear it's going through, it's imminent, it's going to happen. And like at the beginning, I'd get really excited about that. But then as time's gone on, then you'll see a few days later, they'll say it's not happening now, or there'll be something. And it's just like a cycle, week over week over week. So it's kind of hard to get excited about something that seems to just be like a vicious circle.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I think as well, I mean, are you what part of the country are you living in? I mean, your accent's obviously not northeast. Are you living down south? Are you living down there? And if you are, is the coverage in the newspapers, is there as much in the papers down there as there is about it up here?
No, I mean, I'm in Norfolk at the moment, but I was in Kent before that. So, but there's nothing here really. I get all my information from Twitter and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good stuff. Well, good to have you on. So we'll just, stay as long as you can, and we'll just go through the next questions that we'll get. B. Taylor says, "What are you lads?" And we need to put #lasses in there as well. Think about the tweet showing supposed text from Richard Coates, who's at PIF, saying funds have already been transferred in the UK, awaiting the green light. So, I mean, I've not seen that again. You know, I'm not sure if you've seen that, Mitch. It's more your department, that area. Have you seen that?
I've seen it. I don't know. Don't know if he's a PIF or if he's associated with PIF. I mean, I've been speaking to somebody associated with PIF this week, who wouldn't have suggested it's gone that far. He's told us other things though, which again all adds to the confidence and the relaxed and everybody's where they're at and they're happy. I'm aware of the Twitter account. I'm always wary of Twitter accounts because we've had a journalist Twitter account who tweeted in May that it was off and is now saying it's on and it's soon. But then if you dig back through his previous tweets, at one point he's asking, how do you delete previous tweets and likes and retweets? You know, and you're like, yeah, okay, so that's an account that's been changed numerous times, and I think it's a Villa fan on the fish.
Yeah.
You know, and I've done that a few times with a few Twitter accounts. Just reverse Google image search the picture, and you suddenly say, yeah, this is weird.
Yeah.
I've also been getting strange messages from 2 or 3 accounts on my Instagram account. One of whom is almost certainly Qatari/Paris based,
right?
Telling us that the takeover's off and Benzaya Group are buying it. I'm like, oh, that's funny because I spoke to him in Hat a couple of days ago and he didn't tell me anything about it. And it's bizarre, and it's this whole use of social media in a geopolitical fashion that we've got dragged into. We're in the middle of this really queer proxy war, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. And
so it's really difficult for any of the fans who are relying on things like social media for their information, are in this unenviable situation whereby you can almost be bipolar by the end of a week.
Yeah.
Because it drives me crazy. And and again, I said it before, if it's driving us crazy, what's it doing to, the average Joe on the street? It's tough. It's tough out there, and you got to certainly Twitter accounts are an absolute doddle to mess around with. It's as easy as when I changed bloody what's his face is the former Sunderland striker's Wikipedia account was on for 2 bloody months. Kenman Jones, that was it.
This tweet out.
It's as easy.
I've got to read this tweet out. GoLazo247 says, he's in reference to Olivier Bernard's tweet, he says, this tweet is proof that Olivier Bernard is still feeling the impact of the Laurent Robert strike to his face. Yes, unfortunately, he's going to get some stick tonight. I hope he's not on the drink and put it out by mistake, or he's let somebody use his phone.
Oh, Jesus.
He's in for a hell of a night. Yeah, I mean, we've looked at this before. A good story there as well by Stevie Charlton. My mate once gave him a spare ticket versus Blackburn away in the cup. He then legged it like Linford Christie to a white van full of his mates. He was top lad. Jason Carter says, I know you're a Lascelles fan, but in my opinion, he's just not good enough as a leader of a footballer. Who would be a good replacement? I hope that was sarcastic because I'm not a Lascelles fan. We need a decent centre half, and I do feel if a takeover goes through, then we need a leader at the back. I wouldn't be surprised if they replace the keeper. That would be I do feel they would go for a more experienced keeper, but I do think a centre half would come in. Dubravka's done brilliantly this season, and I wouldn't replace him. But I think any good team, any team that's a team of substance and a team that wants to achieve things builds from the back, and I think a good goalkeeper and a good centre half and a leader who's a centre half is your first port of call. That, who do we bring in? It depends depends where we're shopping, doesn't it? Really, I suppose. Steve, I'll give that to you first and foremost. It depends where we're. Are we shopping in Poundland or are we shopping in Harrods?
Exactly, and I think it also depends on what style of football you're going to play. I mean, if you're looking at playing a direct style of football because Steve Bruce is still there, because that's what he's going to go for someone at the ilk of himself. Whereas if you're going for Rafa, he's going to go 3 at the back, and he's going to go for someone with silky skills and someone who can sort of bring the ball out from the back 4 or the back 3 or the back 5. then if you're going to go for if you got someone like the ex-Tottenham manager, then again it's a completely different style of football again, where he enjoys a back four, but he likes lads who can be versatile, and he can move across the back four, and he can play as full back as well as a centre half if necessary. So I think there's lots of variations that you could look at, but a lot of it depends on the style of football that the manager that we have at that particular time wants to play. I again, you look at Manchester City and you look at the players that they're looking for. They've got John Stones, but they're looking to replace them. If you read the press, if you agree with what's in the press, and they're going for the lad from Bournemouth, paying twice as much money, 40 million as Bournemouth paid, which was 20 million. And they picked him up from Chelsea. There was a story that Chelsea were trying to buy the lad back. Now he's the sort, he looks the part, but he's not one of these talkative centre halves like a lot of foreign centre halves on. A lot of foreign central defenders are not the talkative type, And I think that in a leadership role, you've got to have someone who's got the gift of the gab, someone who can not even prod and poke and cajole the players around them, but actually shout and scream at them sometimes, And I think in the modern game, that's something that in the last sort of 10 years has gone out of the game. You used to see Shearer berating people, when we were like struggling. Roy Keane, you would see berating. Patrick Vieira, you would see him screaming. Tony Adams. We don't seem to have players around in the Premier League that do that at the moment. They all seem hypersensitive. It seems as though that some, there's players in that squad that they're frightened to talk to, they're frightened to shout at, because, it's going to give them some sort of like inferiority complex, or they're going to suffer from problems because of it, So who knows? I mean, I'd be interested to hear that sort of more younger aspect and hear what Sav has to think about it, because I'm very much of the ilk that you've got to have a leader who's got authority, but can stamp that authority on the rest of the other 10 on the pitch. Yeah,
over to you, Sav. Obviously, yes, comment there for you. Apart from Shaw, who would you keep from the current team? But I mean, what's your views on the back four at the minute?
Do you know what? I think there's so many injuries. I don't mind Danny Rose. I know a lot of people don't like him. I think considering our team is quite shocking at the best of times, he's not too bad. But, if the takeover went through, it'd be a different kettle of fish. It's just difficult without knowing a budget on who you would pick for a back four.
Yeah. Is Shaw one of your favourites?
Only for very shallow reasons, I'm afraid. I don't want him to go.
To be honest,
unless he's going to move to Norfolk.
Yeah, he can come to Norfolk anytime.
We did discuss this on the show previously, and he was a great player under Rafa, but unfortunately, yeah. I think he's been bruised. And I'm getting a bit of stick from people saying, well, I think it's 50-50 about Lascelles. A lot of people saying they like Lascelles, but, Jason Carter.
I like him. I just don't think he's a leader. I don't think on a good day he's a good player, but I don't think he's got that sort of dominance to lead a team. He's quite a tricky one. But like as you say, if your takeover went through, you would replace him. If it doesn't, is he the best of a bad bunch? Do you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think to use the old war analogy, he's more a corporal than a sergeant major, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Dave Thorpe from the back page. Hi, mate. He says, how are you, Steve? Shopping in Poundland or the back page? Get your masks from the back page. I can recommend them. I hope you had a few sales, mate, after I put that thing out for you the other day. Good big shout out to the lads. They've been hit badly with this whole COVID thing. It's been an absolute nightmare for them. James May, not the James May from Top Gear, I presume, but it's Mitch with the Saudis ploughing big money into companies like the WWE and running big boxing events, etc. Do you think these events could also be used to promote NUFC and raise commercial awareness?
Of course they could. Easy. Absolutely easy to do. And this is the point of a takeover from this part of the world. When I was, obviously when me and Steve were dealing with Binsaya Group, they had this idea for the training camp in Shanghai, near Disneyland Shanghai, with the club crest being very visible there, and getting across Asia that way. It's easy to do. If Saudi have a brand that they want to use to push across the world, they will make it all connected. And yes, Well, Howie, it's not that long ago. We had a car running at Le Mans with a bloody Newcastle badge on under Shepherd and Hall. You know, it's not hard to do. Absolutely not hard to do, because these are the connected things that come from having a global vision about what you're doing. And they do have a global vision because they've got the 2030 vision that they're working on. That is very much part of, and the investments they're making are very much part of. And that's modelled on the Vision 2020 from here in Dubai, you know, in the UAE. So, yeah, really, really, really easy thing to do. And we would be, and I know this now wanders into some of the areas of sports washing that people aren't happy about, which I get, but it's reality. And the raising of the brand awareness across all the brands, that's what would happen. Totally. And in relation to the last question, because I can see there's a few things coming up about Lascelles and centre-backs. The centre-back I would go for is Dunk at Brighton, because he'll kick anything. He'd kick his granny.
Yeah, very true.
He's horrible, and that's the kind of centre back we need at the moment. It's the Kilcline effect, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I don't. I've seen some of the comments there, and I agree with a lot of things the lads are saying. Lascelles under Rafa was a leader. He was a centre half who was leading that back four, back five, back three, and yes, Rafa did trust him, but he's not the same player this season. In the same way as Lejeune's not been the same player when he's come back from injury, in the same way that Shaw's not been the same person, in the same way as we've hardly seen Dummett because of injury. You know, there's an awful lot to, you know, and this is where the comparison between the two seasons and, you know, going back to the season before and all this comparison between 43 points and 46 points and all that, that's where it becomes totally irrelevant, because every game's different, every season's different. You know, players get older, players have bad times, but the good players are consistent season after season. But usually the consistency comes with working for a manager who's there consistently over 3, 4, 5 seasons. The changes in the manager does not help players like of Lascelles, etc., because he then has to work and he has to build a relationship with the manager as well as a relationship and how the manager wants him to perform on the field, what instructions he wants him to be shouting about on the field, how he wants him to be controlling the back four, the midfield. All of a sudden, he's got a midfielder that are playing 10 yards in front of him instead of 20, or 20 yards in front of him instead of 10. All of those type of things. You know, we'll probably make an awful lot about the comparison aspect of the game in the last couple of seasons and the comparison of the managers. And I'm not seeing the same Lascelles this season as I did last season.
No,
I think and with that comes criticism, and that's, you know, I'm sorry that it's coming over as a negativity, because I do think the season before Lascelles was one of our most outstanding and consistent players that we had.
I've never listened in the current state of affairs. Look, I'm happy to see Lascelles lead the team out. I'm happy to see Lascelles captain the team. Rafa saw something in him. Somebody made that point. One of the texters made that point. However, if we go into the realms of being able to spend money, then we don't have Jamal Lascelles as captain of that team, and we don't have him centre half. That's the point I'm trying to make. And you know, I'm not a fan. I just think, you know, he reminds us a lot of the way that he plays, like Titus Bramble. You know, at times he can be startled, and he's like a I don't know, like Bambi on ice at times. Other times he looks great and he's accomplished, and you know, I just think any half decent centre forward gets the better of him every time. And you know, listen, I like the lad. He's done his best for Newcastle. It's not a criticism. I just think if we're going into the realms of being one of the richest teams in the world, you know, we won't have Lascelles there next season.
But you know what? I think that comes from coaching. I think that comes from the coaching that you get, the confidence you build from your coach, the confidence that your coach gives you in the style of football he wants you to play, and that's a defensive position that is very much a, you know, this is what you're doing. you know. And sometimes making a centre half a captain as well can be, you know, normally I prefer the captain to be a midfielder who can see what's going on and is involved a lot in the game, whereas a defender tends not to be, certainly a central defender tends not to be in the game. He might be able to see the game in front of him and see, but he's not seeing the patterns, and he's not seeing the ball and the control and what's going on way above it. And I think Lascelles has struggled from the lack of proper coaching, and that surprised me, because Steve Bruce was a central defender, you know, and so I'm expecting more from Steve Bruce, and that's why I'm expecting more from Jamal Lascelles.
Yeah. Sav, question for you there from Luke Willits. We've had this ourselves on many occasions. I suppose it's, you know, if the takeover goes through and Steve Bruce is going to leave, who would you prefer to have? Would you like to see the return of Rafa, or would you like to see them go for Pochettino?
Do you know what? I'd like Rafa to come back. I heard about Pochettino that he was offered the job apparently in one of these news things, and he turned it down. I think, like has already been said, Rafa did an amazing job with the team, and I hate these sort of points comparisons that are flying about with Steve Bruce, because Steve Bruce, you know, it's always the same tactics, the same players, you know, and it seems a little bit lost and muddled. And you've got things like, I'm not sticking up for Sharp because, you know, of aesthetic reasons, but players like him that are falling off the wagon, and he turns up, he looks like he don't want to be there anymore. Same with Lascelles, really, to a degree. But yeah, definitely Rafa.
Yeah, 100%. Josh Blake says, is sports washing even a thing? Basically using sporting success to cover up wrongdoings in their own country. Surely it only becomes a thing if people stop talking about the issues. Again, Neil, you're getting inundated with things like in your region.
But that's correct. And I think this is something that people have missed about the fan base. You know, when I know you've been accused of being a cheerleader for Saudi by a few people, and it's wrong. Will the fan base stop asking questions? No. There's enough people within our fan base who've got enough social conscience and care about what Newcastle United means that we will continually, as a fan base, we've shown this. We gave Qatar so much ammunition in that Zoom meeting with Gianura in the Toontown Hall that they were able to put it on Al Jazeera News and spin it that Newcastle United fans don't want the takeover to happen, which was absolute rubbish. Mm-hmm. But what we showed was that we're prepared to ask the hard questions. And we'll continually ask the hard questions. Our fan base is full of people, and Steve and I have met them over time and time again. So doing stuff, building up the supporters club and then converting it to the trust. That we've met enough people who are prepared to be critical friends of the club. And that's what we need to be as fan base. And I think this is a two-way street. There's a potential for a two-way street here, that we can help Saudi make the changes that they want to make by saying, hey, no, don't associate this with us, and allowing it, because we're on the global stage. Mm-hmm. If we're owned by Saudi, and we are Newcastle United in the Premier League, and we are on the global stage, we actually have a tiny bit of leverage. Yes, it's not much, and we're not going to change the world because we can't. We're football fans. We care about the club, but what that club stands for, we can certainly make enough noise. And I can tell you now, any Arabic owner post the Arab Spring will be wary of a fan base that has the potential to run a protest. Yeah. And our fan base certainly has that potential.
No, but more practice of protest than we'll have anything else. To be honest,
right, mate. We all know this. You, me, and Steve have put more into things like that in our time. Than so many things, because we've spent the last 13 years in a fractured relationship with the owner. Yeah. That he wants to get out, and we need to help him out the door in any way we can. And the Premier League need to listen to this and get him out the door, because it's happening. It's there, and all you have to do is not just tell them verbally it's happening, is rubber stamp it and be done.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve Gallagher's shots is making making plenty noise tonight about various things on players. Again, I don't disagree. I presume it's Chris who's texting in. How can we blame Bruce for Lascelles, Shaw, etc.? But then look over John Joe Shelby, who's been great this season, and he said that's down to Bruce. Again. I'm not a fan of Shelby, and again, people might mock me for that, but Shelby was dropped by Rafa for a reason, and I'm not going to go into what I believe those reasons were, but ultimately, he wasn't 100% in. I didn't think when he was playing at the best of times, but he's, look, everyone. That's what makes this game great and our club great. We've all got opinions. Would you say Shelby's been great this season, Steve?
Shelby's put in some great performances.
Better than
some of us expected. Shelby in a good team is an absolutely brilliant player. Shelby, you know what? Shelby in Man City's team would be outstanding. He would be outstanding. Shelby would fit in with Chelsea. Shelby, the right John Joe Shelby, with the right in his head, with his head working 100% continuously through a game. The problem with John Joe, I think personally, is that John Joe has good games, and then he has a long Kondo moment that lasts 3 or 4 or 5 games. He drifts away, and it's when he's one of those players who has either a very good game or is shocking, And has he been given the freedom? I remember going to training ground and sitting with Rafa, and Rafa, it was Colin Whittle, myself, and Bill Corcoran from the food bank, and we stood and watched the game. A training session, 20 minutes. Rafa talked us through what he was expecting, what his anticipation was, why he did this, how he would drop sessions and reduce the time, and we went through the whole thing. And he was quite honest and that. And then afterwards, the first thing he asked us was, and he put all on the spot, the 3 of us, and the other 2 lads that were with us, and he said, "Who do you think stood out?" And we went, we put one on the spot there. And he goes, "Well, who do you think wasn't trying?" And we were like, "Oh, right." And he smiled that way, and he laughed, and he went, so somebody went, "John Joe Shelby?" And he went, Rafa went, "John Joe, what you saw was John Joe. Was he trying? Was he doing this? That's John Joe. That's what you get." And it was like, "Oh, okay." And then he sort of elaborated a little bit, and he went, "John Joe's on holiday. He's on holiday already. There was 1 game to go. We're playing Fulham on the Sunday, and then this was the Thursday. You went, John Joe's on holiday already. Did you not notice it?" And we were going, well, and of course you're not going to criticize. You're not going to criticize a professional footballer in the sake of like the 20 minutes that you've got in front of his manager, and so you're very, very careful of your words, and you're like sort of trying to be diplomatic. And Rafa was like, "Whoa, no, he was on holiday. He was on holiday." And I remember walking out with Bill and Colin, and we went, "Oh, dear me, I wouldn't like to put John Joe Shelby over dinner today. He's going to absolutely roast him." Come to Sunday, we told everybody that he's played his last game, and we'll never see him in a Newcastle shirt again. Come Sunday, not only did he play, Rafa made him captain, for God's sake. Yeah. We were like, what the hell is going on, But that was Rafa, that was the way that he was. And what I'm getting at is John Joe is an outstanding talent. I think he has problems in his head sometimes. The concentration levels aren't there. But when he's on his game, I don't think there's anyone better in that. Apart from Mr. Brunya, but there's nobody better in the Premier League. There's nobody can hit a ball 60 yards like he can. People. If Pogba makes a pass like that, then it's all over the national press and all over TV. Yeah. Shelby would 4 or 5 times in a game, and doesn't even get a mention, But that's the Shelby that's playing well. And Lascelles can have good games. I know where Chris is coming from. I know where Gallagher shots has come from, and I understand. And I'm not trying to criticize to the point of saying somebody's shite or something like that. I'm just saying that we're talking about a bloke here, a manager who's had 20 years experience in the game, and a player who I personally think can get better and better and better. Mm. And I don't like players when they become static and then they just go, and that career then just filters away at 26-year-old. I think if he was 35, fair enough, but I think there's an awful lot more in a lot of our players, Steve.
Before we come to James's question for Sav about which players he would keep in the squad for next season, loads of feedback on Shelby. Jack Chater says Shelby's unreal, world class at times. Rafa Benitez as God says Shelby's only been fit to play 21 games this season. That's hardly great. James says Shelby isn't very good at following his man back. Dave Little, I would agree with you. He says Shelby is the definition of a luxury player. Jason Carter, he says, got to admit though, when Shelby passes some of those balls, we all think, wow, which is the point that Steve made, I think. Shelby's fitness levels and commitment since returning have been like seeing a different player, says Lee Foster. Yeah, I mean, look, it's certainly something which will run and run. James also says you could say Shelby had more potential than Jordan Henderson, but what sets him apart is Hendo has an engine and a good work ethic, and he's not temperamental. He had a few disciplinary issues, of course, Shelby, and I mean he got binned from Liverpool originally, and then Swansea were quick to move him on, so it's one of those things. But yeah, Sav, the question that was for you, which of the players would you like to see stay next season under the takeover or no takeover, I suppose? Is there any players you'd love to just keep at the club this season?
Yeah, definitely. Debracco, I know you said about him earlier, but yeah. I think he's brilliant. St Max, obviously. I'd keep Miggy for now. I'm hoping that he could sort of improve his finishing product.
Yeah.
Shah, I'm moving on from that one. And Hayden, and probably the Cells, to be fair.
Good. Martin O'Brien says he'd love to keep Shaw as well, but he's off to Norfolk.
Brilliant.
Colin Wilson says, hi, lads and lass. If the takeover does not go through by Monday, I think Twitter will go into meltdown with abuse to all and sundry, mostly not justified. Something has to happen. It's getting unbearable. And yeah, Sav, I mean, it's one of the reasons I got you on as well. I mean, I saw the way that you handled yourself on Twitter. It's always great to see, people giving a bit back. I mean, I'm a victim of trolls every day of my life. Yeah. And you've had a few. Some have accused you of being a man. I think you even told us.
I know, and here I am. And there's no gun to my head. There's no one over there. I've got my earpiece in.
Exactly. Yeah. It's ridiculous, though, isn't it? How our fan base in particular does go into meltdown on Twitter over the slightest of thing, or a knee-jerk reaction to the slightest thing that's posted.
Do you know what? It really annoys me because I feel like it's because I'm female, and give an opinion that people instantly think, oh, that's got to be a guy trying to pass off as a female just to get likes. Yeah. It's really frustrating. I try out in my kitchen after I went to work trying to take a picture of me with a bit of paper saying that I'm not a catfish just because I'm getting messages saying that that's been happening whilst I've been at work. It's really irritating. Yeah.
It's strange. I mean, we've had the whole Kate Stewart's a bot thing as well. I mean, I constantly get abuse over that. You don't know her.
Kate's been nothing but lovely to me in my DMs. We have a chat sometimes. She's been really nice.
Yeah, I know. But the crazy thing is, I actually know Kate. I actually know her. I speak to her. I've got, she lives. I'm not going to say where she lives, but no. I've been down to see her. She's somebody who I've known for a while. So from my perspective, I find that someone being called a bot for no other reason that she is, pushing out stuff about Saudi in a positive light is crazy. But that's Twitter, and I think it's the only social media platform that really allows abuse to go that step further. I mean, we had one before we came online tonight where another account with about 20 followers more or less said that I was having an affair with you and having an affair with a good friend of mine, Sarah. Yeah. I haven't moved on to LBGT relationships yet, but give them time. But it's unless you get it into your head that that's what Twitter is all about, then it's gonna really traumatize some people, isn't it, Sal?
This is why, because I used to have a Twitter account and it was privatized and I had it for years. And then when lockdown came in, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to create myself a new account and I'm going to start again. And I'm not going to privatize it because I can deal with this now. And some of it, I've had days where I've woke up and I thought, why am I bothering? Because people can be really vile. But then for everyone that's vile, there's 10 more people that can be really nice and sort of DM me when I'm saying that I'm feeling a bit down or, you know, things are getting a bit much, and they talk you round. And that's what I like about Twitter.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, guys, I know you've had similar issues. We've watched other meltdowns happen. We'll not name the guy, but somebody we both know who's been quite quite prevalent, I suppose, in campaigns over the years. And, he's had his own personal issues. But, of course, he went through a similar bullying campaign by various people online. Steve, it wasn't pleasant to watch, was it? Police
No, it wasn't. And it's totally unfair, and it's faceless, and it's bullying. That's the word to use. It's bullying. It's the most cowardly bullying that you can come across. And I've in recent days I've said, people come online and they say things about you on Twitter, or they make comment, or they question what you're saying, and you go, you know what? If you're willing to put your proper name up, and because everybody knows, we don't know who you are, so I'm not going to communicate with you if I don't know who you are. If you've got the guts to say your full name, your proper name, and you tell us who you are, then we can have a sensible and honest dialogue. I've upset people this week. People have upset me this week. But you're right, Steve. There are people out there who are, especially after as lockdown's gone on, and way beyond, way before that as well, who struggle with social media wise, and. We all sit there and go, well, it's dead easy. Just cancel your account. Just do this, do that. And then you think, have I said the right thing? Because people should be allowed to be on a platform if they want to communicate with their friends, and they want to communicate with civil, honest, decent people. It's this trolling business, and these faceless people who feel as though that they get some sort of, I don't know, fantasy kick or sexual kick or whatever it happens to be, out of hounding somebody for their look, for something that they've said, or their opinion that, quite frankly, is very rarely an opinion that hurts anybody anyway. I mean, we all know that people can get carried away. And what I like about listening to people like Sav, who can come on and can hold their own and talk, as a female, and as a father of two girls, one of whom lives in the Middle East, I find that it's refreshing to hear someone who can come on and can be honest and straightforward and talk about football, because my girls don't talk about football, by the way. They're not interested in football, I've taken them to the match for God knows how long. It's probably worse than social media, actually, forcing them to go to a game and forcing them to watch football when it's got half time and they went, it's too cold, can I go inside, Dad? That type of thing, Well, it's great, and I'm a firm believer that the football's changed, and certainly for the better. And I'm hoping it's changed for girls and women like Sav, who can interact and talk about football and be listened when they're talking about football.
Yeah, 100%. Great stuff. And as long as you're all right to stay on, Sav, we've got another 20 minutes of the show to go. So feel free to chip in when we get round to the questions. Dan Milne says, do you think Matty is gone now, or just waiting like the rest of us for the takeover? Mitch, is Matty Longstaff on his way to euthanasia, or do you think we'll see him in this brand new Fun 88 strip in September the 12th?
I don't know. It's all a bit. There's so many variables here, isn't there? Takeover, Watford situation. Because I've got no doubt if he's going to euthanasia on that money, he's going to be sent to Watford if they're still in the Premier League. The association with those two clubs, to me, that's what they'll do. Might not do it if they're in the Championship. And therefore, the deal might not happen if they're in the Championship. How badly did Newcastle United, as it stands, want to keep him? We discussed this a couple of weeks ago when we're talking about, how much, if you compare the cost of paying his wages versus replacing them, do we want to keep him? I'm still hassling his uncle, and I'm still getting nothing out of his uncle. He's the kind of lawyer that the it's for me. I think he's gone. Personally, I don't think we're going to put something on the table that him and his agent and everybody's going to be happy with. Even if the takeover happens, I suspect they've got other fish to fry. When the takeover happens.
Craig, yeah, you'll get picked up on that straight away. Craig Southgate says, I think Matty is playing the game as a sportsman in the family. Don't think it's Matty talking. Think it's the folks behind him. Steve, is his dad a bit of an influence, do you think, on the whole sim? He's related to Alan Thompson, of course, as well, a former Newcastle player. Do you think he'd be getting a little bit of advice from them about what to do?
He'll be getting advice, certainly. I wouldn't expect him not to be getting advice. I think the longer it's gone on, I think he'll sign. I'll put my neck on the line. I think he'll be a Newcastle player next season.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll put my neck on the line on that one. Okay. I'm not going to put my neck on the line on anything else tonight, but I'll put my neck on the line on that one.
Sav, Matty Longstaff, do you think he'll be at Newcastle next season?
Do you know what? I think he's remained very tight-lipped about the whole situation, and he's not being played at all now, which for me is a little bit suspicious. I don't know, I think if why would you sit on the bench if you're going to be offered more money to play more, more games elsewhere?
Fair point. I mean, I personally feel Matty Longstaff, has still a lot to prove. I would love to see him stay at the club. Do I think he'll be here next season? I don't think he will be. No. I just genuinely can't see it happening. I think his mind's made up, and I think he'll go. Who would you have picked for player of the season? Henderson is ahead of Kevin De Bruyne. Marnie, Kevin De Bruyne for me is the best player in the league. So, yeah, I've seen a bit of criticism of this actually on social media. Mitch, your player of the season. I mean, it's the football writers of the season, of course.
Yeah, but we're also in the FIFA age where stats mean everything and results mean nothing. Who has the title?
Yeah. True.
Who has the title? Who's been key? And he's played in about 6 different positions for Liverpool this season. And he's been almost ever present. Who has the title? I don't care about assists and glorious goals and all that sort of stuff. Substance. What's the substance? And the substance is the title.
Yeah.
And who's probably, for all the players they've got in that squad, the rock that holds them together in midfield has been Henderson. I've met Jordan a few times. Years where the worlds collide a little bit. I know the guy that used to be Sunderland's club dentist quite well, and he was Jordan's dentist as well. And I've met him a couple of times, and genuinely for a Macam, nice guy.
Yeah,
got a lot of time for him. He spent time in his company, and you can only warm to him. Does he deserve it? Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah,
he's lifted the title. De Bruyne hasn't.
I'm going to come out and support you 100% because Jordan Henderson, he's improved his game. He started at Sunderland, as you say, but he was like a top player in a terrible team. He's moved to Liverpool. He's had to work for it. But look at what he's won. He's won the Champions League, and he's captained the team to the Champions League, and now he's captained the team to the Premier League. And he almost did it last year. And Liverpool just missed out last year. Hadn't been for Man City being so bloody good last year, then they had a great chance last year of winning it. And it's the consistency that they've managed. So I think the football writers have got it right. Gav, would you agree? Is Henderson your player of the season? Would you agree on that?
Sorry, definitely.
Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, Steve, what about you?
I think the player of the season always comes from the team that wins the league, the consistency that team's shown. And Henderson, for me, I have to take away the fact that he played for Sunderland. I have to take away the fact of, and you have to move away from who your favourite players are, the players that you like. I love the style of play from Kevin De Bruyne. I loved Silva at Man City. Beautiful footballers, fantastic footballers. But Jason Henderson's taken that team, and he's been a shape in that team for about 7 seasons now, 8 seasons, something like that. And I think he's matured as a player. He's probably matured as a person, and he's certainly become a leader of that team. Even though they've got a centre half who was winning honours left, right, and centre across Europe last season, and he's the captain of them. So he's taken them to something they haven't done for 30 years. He's led them as the captain for 30 years, and probably the best way to describe it is led by example. Yeah, a proper professional for a good couple of seasons now, and maybe we don't like it because he's worn the Sunderland shirt at some point in time.
Yeah, we've had too much of a Liverpool loving now. We're playing them at the weekend, so yeah, but we all agree. Henderson.
I've got the Vaseline ready. It's fine.
James Mayer has said Joe Linton. Does he stay or does he go? Should I just sit this one out?
Better.
Should never have been here, for God's sake. But he is. We're stuck with him. So I'd love to see him go, but we're stuck with him. Sav, what about you? Would you persevere with him? Are you one of these people who believes that maybe he'll get better in his second season?
Do you know what? When the restart came about, I'd sort of got this weird supporting of him. I don't know what had happened, if I'd gone a bit delirious in lockdown. But I thought I really wanted him to do well when we restart. And I was really behind him. I thought maybe the rest will do him well. He's had a lot of flack off the fans. It's got to be, when you're playing, it's got to be a little bit, he feels a bit downtrodden. But started off and I thought, actually, I think he's changed now. And then he's just lost it again. And I don't see it. He's not going to bring us forward in any way, shape or form. No matter how much empathy you feel, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I felt he had a big rest prior to Project Restart, namely all the games that he played in. Steve, Joe Linton, what about your view on Joe Linton?
Should go, but will stay.
Yeah, same question to you, Mitch. I saw you nodding when I was speaking, so I presume you just agree.
He's our problem. We've got to work with it.
Yeah,
we've got to find something to. What is he? Like I've said before, he's in a world of round holes and square pegs. He's an octagon. So what do we do with him? We've got to work out what to do with him.
That's down.
You could check the fences down as well, Steve.
Cut the grass. He make a good doorman, the size of him. But we'll leave it there before I start upsetting more people. Andy Gurney says, Sav, what will be your kind of choice? Mitch has got like a brewery at his place. What's your kind of choice when the takeover happens?
Well, at the moment, it's 7-Up. I don't really drink cans. I'm more a vodka drinker, but I'm quite public about that.
Well, that's good. I'm a vodka drinker as well, but I think I might be on the wine when this happens up there. I've got 2 bottles of wine in the house now, which is my first.
No, wine turns me into a different person. I turn really moronic, so I don't touch it anymore.
Good stuff. Eddie Garner says, Steve Hastie, this is a great question. Would you get up with Sav? He's a married man, for God's sake. Question.
I'm old enough to be a granddad, man.
There's always some questions. There's always some questions that we get thrown in, and there's a curveball comes in like that. So we'll have to apologise for that. Aaron Kane says, Steve, you've been a breath of fresh air. Everyone is so negative, yet you've stuck to your instincts. Nothing but respect to you. Well, that's very kind of you, mate. It's nice to get some positivity. Josh says, has Jordan Henderson even been the best player in Liverpool? Van Dijk is a bigger influence in that team. The defence literally relies on him playing every game. Yeah, I would imagine that is the case. Van Dijk has been superb, but as I say, we've had enough of Liverpool. James, when seeing Liverpool lifting the title, I want that so bad at our club, and the takeover is the only thing that will do that. I don't think you get any argument from us. Davey says, Mitch, would you come back home to the Toon to be the Toon dentist? Didn't know they had one. I suppose he's saying if the takeover goes through, are you going to come back home?
I'd take any job in Newcastle United.
Yeah.
Simple. Dream job. Yeah, I'd work in Newcastle United. Simple as that. I used to know the club dentist that was associated with Newcastle United was an oral surgeon. Certainly until recently, certainly when I was there, and somebody I knew quite well who helped shoulder out when he got the elbow in the face, and his teeth were splayed here, there, and everywhere. Because if you remember, Shola played with a mouth guard for a little while, and that was after everything was fixed. I've got associations with sports dentistry. I'm a member of the European Academy of Sports Dentistry, and I spoke to a FIFA conference here in Dubai 2 years ago. I've been asked to speak to the next ECOSEP conference in Athens in 2021 in November. It's a strange thing that it's part of medicine that gets forgotten, and part of the problem with FIFA is they don't always record dental injuries as an injury. Under FIFA guidelines, you only report an injury if the player can't train at the next training session. So some of them who've had dental injuries can still train, so it doesn't get reported, but it's still there. But now we're working on these things called oral systemic links. When you look at how health of the mouth influences the health of the body, if you look at the data that's come from the Olympic studies, oral health is actually a metric of performance for elite group athletes. And so it's something I would sit down with Newcastle United tomorrow and work something out with them to say, right, you want to get these guys, you've got to remember, elite group athletes are looking for like less than 0.5% of performance increase to turn them from very good to elite. What makes Lionel Messi and John Joe Shelby is probably actually only about 0.5%. It's not a massive improvement.
It also works the other way, Mitch, as well. Remember that 0.5% can mean a very, very good player turning into an average player.
Yes, absolutely.
Around.
Yeah,
you've now got a situation where in the last transfer window there was two transfers in Italy didn't go through because the player failed their medical, and the reason they failed their medical was their oral health.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody said, right, I'm spending 40 million euro on you, and your wisdom teeth are shit, and you've got loads of cavities, and you're going to need root canals here, and here. No, I'm not buying you. Done.
Yeah. We've only got 10 minutes left, lads and lass. So we've got Carl Roberts asking, has anything you've heard shook your confidence the takeover won't go through? Genuinely speaking, this week has not been any different to any other week for me. My contacts have still maintained that they don't see any reason why this won't go through, but haven't given us any indication as to when it will go through. It's going to drag on.
Same.
If it drags on, beyond next week, I wouldn't be surprised. But, will there be an end game? Will there be something happens with this takeover? I believe there will be. But when is the $1 million question? And if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't be able to share it. But I would certainly love to. But it's one of those things. And we've maintained confidence all the way through, Neil, haven't we? Like through the takeover.
Yeah, we have. And I mean, if this week was one of those weeks where it started off after on Monday, Tuesday, where stories started to come out, and it became pretty obvious early on where the stories were coming from, where the tales were being built from, because there's a void, isn't there? There's an area where it's not getting talked about, and you can put anything out there and nobody's going to respond. Nobody's going to come out and contradict what the stories are. And at the beginning of the week, we heard this tale that obviously came from Qatar that basically dissed the entire situation. It turned around and said that because of the actions of Saudi Arabia banning the broadcasts of BN Sports into Saudi and fining them $2.6 or $2.8 billion, that this was going to have a massive impact on the takeover. You then look at it, and this went on for what, like 2 days, and then you start to dissect, start to look into it, and you think, well, hang on. So you do your little bit of research that you would expect some journalists to have done, and there was a lad on Twitter did some fantastic work. Yes. I think it was Jack, wasn't it? Jack Chater did some brilliant work, and then I picked up and I put my spin on what Jack was saying, and also from my own little work that I'd been doing at the time, and you see, well, actually, what happened was, we all know that 2016's that Saudi complained about the way that that the 2016 Euros contracts had been sold to clients. So then in 2017, obviously there was a falling out that we know about, and that was political and diplomatic. And then in 2018, we found out that there was had been an ongoing court case for a while. And then we hear that at that point, Saudi decided that BN Sports were found in breach of competition rules in Saudi based on Saudi law. So they threw it out. The Qataris decided that they were then going to appeal. In the meantime, the UAE decided that they were going to stop the sale of boxes in the UAE, or specifically in Dubai, part of UAE. And then the appeal landed. So the UAE lifted, or Dubai lifted their embargo that they placed on it. So this has been ongoing since then. And then you find out that after everything that's been happening, right in the middle of the takeover scenario and the situation that's been happening, the courts in Dubai have looked at the whole thing and looked at the appeal of BN Sports, and we find that they've said, no, you were in the wrong. So the authorities then turn around and go, you're out, you're banned. So straight away, people have forgotten about what happened in the previous 2 years. They forgot about the action in 2018. They've waited until the 2020. Nobody did the digging around. Nobody looked, except for people like Jack, who maybe he had a bit of time, but maybe he had the foresight and sense to do that and not take what he was hearing as being absolutely gospel. I did exactly the same on a different tack. And I put my little 4 pence in. The only thing I got wrong yesterday was that I actually said that Dubai had actually banned again the boxes. I preempted that. I probably shot the gun a little bit too quick on that, but I was based on the fact that they did it the first time. They're more than likely, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened second time round. In 2018,
Steve,
sorry, Neil,
give you a bit of flesh on that. I've spoken to a couple of people at the National UAE and at Arab News in Saudi today, and they're doing some digging about whether the UAE are following up on that or not. Yeah. And they haven't had a straight answer.
No. Leave that one. There's also the fact that we're now here with Kuwait and Oman may very likely follow the same path, because all of the problems that they've had and the agreements that they've suddenly come up with Saudi, where there's been little disputes that have been happening regarding oil and the sale of oil, etc. So all of a sudden there's like sort of a coming together again in that particular area. And so it's all building up again. And yet we get immediately slagged off because we're pro-Saudi. I'm not pro-Saudi at all. What I am, I'm pro-Newcastle United. I'm hoping that we'll have a takeover. And as Neil said 25 minutes ago, we'll watch Saudi like a hawk when they come in, when they take over this football club, and we'll hold them to account for things that happen. But we're no experts in geopolitical. We're no experts, and we're not gonna sort of, delve into all of those that some people out there think we should be, and immediately condemn us because we're talking about it. For God's sake.
Yeah, there's some great messages coming in. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to go through them all. Basically, somebody's saying that they've got a dentist appointment tomorrow at 2:30. That's probably 2:30. Yeah. Yes, brilliant. That. And another one saying that Mitch should sponsor Joe Linton because he's toothless. So yeah, thanks for those. Chicken Oriental says there's a job going at McDonald's for Joe Linton. It's lots of people having a pop at Joe Linton, and I mean, look, it's one of them things. He hasn't lived up to his price tag. Potentially, next season maybe it would be a little bit better. So look, we're going to look ahead quickly. 3 minutes left to Liverpool at the weekend. A pretty meaningless game for everyone concerned. Newcastle and Liverpool. Newcastle, of course, safe. Liverpool, of course, champions. Sav, first and foremost, Liverpool at home on Sunday. How do you see the game going? What do you think the result will be?
If I'm being completely honest, I think we've got our pants down, we're bent over, and we're ready to take it. And that's all I can see that's going to happen, to be fair.
Yeah, it's I don't even think you need a prediction, Steve.
Well, how can I respond after that? That's class. That you know what? Is there a Newcastle United out there that can turn them over? Probably not. Is there a Liverpool out there that could come out and turn us over? Absolutely. Will they turn us over? Who knows? Will they be on holiday? Will he throw all his kids in? He's done it before in the cup. We just don't know. Will he force those players to play one more game for the fan base? You just don't know, do you? I'm just glad this season's over, quite frankly. It starts again on the 12th of September, by the way. Yeah.
Neil, what's your prediction?
I've got my ball gag and my Vaseline ready, mate. It's the same. Honestly, one thing for sure. I am not watching this game in Goodfellas and Tecom because that's the current home of the Dubai Reds, and so we're gonna probably slope off somewhere else sleazy in Tecom because I can't sit and listen to that lot mouth off about 30 years of hurt and all of that rubbish. I was in there last night, and there's a flag up about 30 years of hurt. 30 years, like Steve pointed out a couple of weeks ago, where they've been in 2 competitions we've never even been in. That's so much hurt. You know, it's like, sod off. So, yeah. However, there's always a coupon buster at the weekend. and it would be just the most Newcastle United thing to do to be that coupon buster this weekend.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong. Yeah, I noticed he didn't give a score. It's either going to be a complete annihilation, or it's going to be one of those Newcastle United, miraculous things. But we haven't got time to discuss it. But the fact that there's no crowd, I think, will play a major effect. It's all of those situations. And Josh Blakey will give him the last comment tonight. Remember Spurs 5-1.
Yes.
Good lad.
Exactly.
Well done. Yeah. We got relegated, didn't we? We got relegated that season, Josh. How weird, don't remind we?
We did, yeah, but we also had Rafa Benitez as manager, but we're not going down that route. Listen, Sal, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm really pleased.
Thank you for asking me.
Really pleased you agreed to come on.
Sal.
I'm sure we can get you back on. And I did notice somebody asking if we could get you and Red Rose Michelle on at some point. So I will speak to you, and I'm sure we may get a loan deal from Gallagher Shots again. I think we're going to have Chris Wallace. Thanks to Chris for he's already apologised on Twitter for causing loads of arguments, he says. So Chris is
a good lad. He's a great lad. I love Chris. I love the rest of the lads at Gallagher Shots. They're brilliant lads. They do some fantastic work for the food bank. I mean, the walks that they've done from Shields and such, but they're just genuine, decent lads. Everybody should give them a look out.
Yeah, good to see Jack Chater on as well, as you say, giving him a good shout out tonight. There's a hell of a lot of research in his own time, to try and help people out. It's a good shout out to him as well. Listen, big thanks to you as always, guys. I'm sure it'll be good to get you back on after the match. I think we're going to do an hour special on Sunday, lads, after the Liverpool. After the win against Liverpool at home. So we'll be back with Super Mac. I'll be back tomorrow with Lee Clark, doing a live show with Lee Clark 1 till 2 tomorrow afternoon. And we will definitely get you back on, Sav. So thanks for joining us.
Definitely, yeah. It's been fun.
Great stuff. All right. Thanks for
Take care, guys.
Good night.
Cheers, everyone.